Hi, welcome to the next installment of Plumeria Global Education Group's webinar series on cross-cultural community building and education. My name is Wendy Tracus. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Plumeria Global Education Group. This particular presentation is on implementing cross-cultural student-centered learning in Uganda, and it's presented by Hellen, Margaret Akello, and Erin Waters. And I would like to introduce them to you. Hellen is a teacher trainer in Serere District, Uganda, and she's experienced in facilitating to teachers RTI reading, music, dance, drama, RPPM, which is responsive, protective, and positive parent modeling. And she's also a certified project-based learning framework facilitator. And my screen just went blank. Just a moment. I'm terribly sorry. All right. Next is Erin Waters. She provides teacher training and mentoring for teachers globally with Third Spaces, and also works with Plumeria. She's currently the president of Plumeria Global Education Group. Her areas of expertise are student-centered learning, which we'll talk about today, project-based learning, cross-cultural communication, formative assessment, and she was an English language fellow and specialist over several years, and has had experience in Algeria, Uganda, Peru. She did a virtual with Peru. She's all over. It's been all over. So Erin, thank you for coming, and Hellen to share your expertise and your experience with working in Uganda. And I'd like to hand it over to Erin.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me all right? All right, I've got some thumbs up here. Today I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to be presenting on implementing cross-cultural student-centered learning in Uganda. I'm hoping my screen will share. I'm not seeing a share, but hopefully you are all seeing a share. So in implementing cross-cultural student-centered learning, I was working in Uganda in 2022 to 2023, and that's where I met Hellen and many other amazing teachers, amazing educators. So today, Hellen and I will be sharing with you some information about cross-cultural student-centered learning and give you some ideas about the positive successes that we had and some challenges and how we overcame them. And then Hellen will also share a little more about challenges that are still outstanding and that they're trying to overcome in Uganda right now. So our goals today are to discuss how differences in culture can and do play a significant role in professional development, to share the importance of local knowledge and creating effective and useful programs and materials, and to encourage all cross-cultural educators to work together for more sustainable outcomes. To get us started, we'd like to define cross-cultural collaboration in education to mean two or more educators from different cultures with a common goal. It's very simplified, but it really is the core of what we do as cross-cultural communicators and educators. The key aspects of cross-cultural collaboration and teacher training is diversity in ideas and teaching practices. That can be seen in the way that student-centered methodologies are introduced. Communicative language teaching may be introduced as opposed to context-specific challenges that would be approached by the local teacher. It also includes culturally relevant pedagogical approaches that are being used currently in the local culture. We have mutual professional growth where we learn from the local teaching traditions and educational systems to enhance global teaching competencies, and the host country educators gain insights into innovative ELT techniques, curriculum design, and assessment methods. Then we have culturally relevant curriculum and material design, where we have collaboration on specific tools that are used for courses, including curriculum and materials, making them relevant to the specific instruction that includes local needs and cultural context. And then finally, and probably not only, we have sustainability and a stronger community of practice. So these kinds of cross-cultural collaborations have a long-term impact in creating and developing institutional and individual partnerships that continue beyond that initial meetup or that initial experience. And then a creation of networks where and communities of practice where we can have professional exchange and continue to develop. Then we have our benefits of cross-cultural collaboration. And I believe Helen and I have both experienced this, as well as many other educators that I've worked with overseas, including those in Algeria and so forth, who we have here today. Those are fivefold listed. Competency, developing a global mindset for both the teacher, the global teacher, and the local teacher, that prepares students for diverse environments as our communities grow and expand internationally. There's professional growth, definitely exposure to different educational systems and policies and different methodologies that are used. I could probably talk for 2 or 3 days on what I learned about different educational systems, policies, and methodologies when I was overseas, and what I'm still learning now that I'm back in the States. Institutional development, meaning the schools and universities also benefit themselves from improved curriculum design, teacher training, resource development in that global and growth mindset. And then finally, sustainable educational change, which lends itself back to those long-term relationships and development of communities of practice for continuous learning and adaptation of programs. So I'd like to jump into the implementing student-centered learning with a definition of student-centered learning that was from the Teal Center fact sheet. It is an approach to learning in which learners choose not only what to study, but also how and why. I'll let everybody sink in with that for just a moment. Learners choose not only what to study, but how and why. So I'm going to ask my co-host here, Hellen Akello, to jump in with us on Ugandan versus US cultural attributes in education. And we're going to see a few differences that are exemplified in the experience that I had in Uganda and I recognized, and what was also seen from the other end. I just want to confirm here that everyone can see the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, good. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
All right, Helen.
Hi, I have come back. I was disorganized by network.
Welcome back.
The network went off completely, but now I'm on. Thanks so much for that presentation that you have done, my co-presenter. You have really elaborated on the student-centered, and you have given us a chance to think about it. I was thinking, if possible, we give people, or we shall ask them to give us what they have thought about, most especially how and why.
Absolutely.
Student-centered. Yeah. if possible, we share about it. What do people understand when we say how the students choose what to learn, how to learn, and why they are learning? If there's someone, you can come in and a minute in my presentation.
You can either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and join in the conversation. So Helen is asking, what are your thoughts on this approach, on learners choosing not only what to study, but also how and why?
Okay.
I find that when learners can choose, they tend to do more work. They're more engaged in what they're doing.
Continue.
If they have ownership of it by being able to choose what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Layla has their hand up.
Another person I'm seeing, Layla. Layla, I'm seeing your hand up.
Hello?
Yes. Layla, we are waiting for you. Okay. As Professor has said that the children come up with ideas on how to achieve the content or how to achieve the competence. That is focusing on the methodologies that they will use because
Did we lose Helen?
I believe Helen has frozen.
like if they think of coming up with something, they have to see how they can achieve. My network seems to be disturbing. Let me go straight away. What I was asked.
As an alternative, Layla, you can always type it in the chat as well.
Okay. Let me go straight away now. What I was asked to present. That is US or America versus Uganda. Teacher-centered, structured, and community-driven. Versus student-centered, individualistic, open discussions, and critical thinking. You'll find that when these learners are fully engaged in learning, they can, for us in Uganda here, you will see that the learners are able to come up with their own ideas. They will come up with their own ways of coming up with their projects that they want, which helps this centered, student-centered, I'm leaving teacher first. Student-centered learning will promote critical thinking, will promote individualized learning, will promote what we call, will create good relationship between the learners and the teachers, because in most cases, the learners go to consult from the teacher where they cannot make it and say, teacher, how can we bring this one? So that one will create that good relationship between the teacher and the learner. Whereas the other teacher-centered method or structured or community-driven, you'll find that the whole teaching is done by the teacher. And the teacher is a spirit of knowledge. They assume that learners don't know. Comes with everything. And the teacher can ask the questions and give even the answers. Does not engage learners in a learning. Then language and community, language and communication barriers. In Uganda, English is often a second language. And in Uganda, we have a variety of languages. We have more than 40 local languages or more than 40 indigenous languages. So those languages, they are spoken by people in Uganda in different areas. So sometimes it affects English, though we take English as our second language. First of all, learn English, our indigenous languages from our communities. Then when the child joins the school, the child begins learning English. But in town settings, children are introduced to English as their first language. So that one, in English in Uganda, is almost becoming the first language, most especially in town areas. Only it is in villages that the learners their first the local language as the first language. Then when they go to school, they get English as a second language. Then vocabulary, idioms, accents. You'll find that Uganda, it depends on the tribe. It depends on the tribe. Some tribes from northern, some tribes from eastern, the Itesos, where I come from, the accent of Ateso does not have much effect on English. But when you find some languages, like in Central, when you go to Buganda, Busoga, instead of saying letter L, they say letter R. They interchange the sounds of the letters. And by so doing that, they affect the pronunciation of some words in English. Then in this one, non-verbal communicators make comprehension difficulty. For us in Uganda here, the government of Uganda has a faced the training of teachers on how to handle children with special needs or children with the impairments. Like some children, they don't know how to speak. They cannot speak. Some children, they are blind. Some children, they are dumb. Then we have some children with physical disabilities. So most teachers are being trained on how to handle these children. So also this non-verbal communication make comprehension difficult. Sometimes, like if you ask someone who does not know the language, since we have very many languages, let us first put English aside. In case a learner has not understood or has not known how to speak English or is not able to understand English. So you'll find that when you try to explain the content to the learner will be looking at you. So sometimes we zero to use our gestures, or we use our sign language, or we use other non-verbal communication signs, for example, use of facial expressions, to try to make such learners also to understand. So that's how this child-centered method is done in Uganda. Also, when children are involved, when the learning is really carried out by the learners themselves, you will find that the learners can learn from each other. They can learn from one or another. So when we go to the first point, it says the teacher-centered, these learners who cannot maybe communicate, who cannot understand the language of instruction, who cannot understand may miss out the content because the teacher may come use the language that the learner does not understand and goes out. That kind of learner can be left out. So my co-presenter or any other person can also add on the Uganda versus US cultural attributes in education. Hello? Hello?
Hello. Erin, are you there?
I'm
think-
there. My network disturbs me.
So I think that Layla has
Oh, here I am.
comments that the analysis of learners' needs is a requirement. So I think that Layla's thinking about like what the learners' needs are and how we as the educators need to think about that.
Thanks, Jen. I wanted to share something as well. I found that I had muted my headset, and my apologies. Really, vocabulary made a huge difference in how well I was able to work with the teachers that I was working with when I was in Uganda. And I found that some words that I thought had one meaning had an entirely different meaning in Uganda. So the English that we're using isn't always exactly the same, and it requires effort on the part of both the learner and the teacher to come to an agreement on what they're meaning. What was really difficult in this situation for me was that the students, because the situation in Uganda, the teaching environment is such that you don't question your instructor, they were hesitant to come and talk to me about what they didn't understand. And it took actually months in one situation for students to come to me and say, well, we didn't understand what you were saying. So these are actual there is an actual problem. Layla just asked if I mean they're using a different English. So Layla, Uganda is using English, the foundation of English, but as similar to British English, having the trunk of the car in the US be the boot of the car in Britain, we have similar different uses. Like boot in the US would be something you put on your foot, not something that's on your car. So that's where our disconnects would happen, is sometimes the vocabulary wouldn't be exactly what I would mean to say to them. It wouldn't be received the same way. You're welcome. So, Helen, I'm going to turn it back over to you, talking about teaching methods mismatch, and then technology and learning tools availability and so forth. Hopefully Helen is still with us. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. Helen, as soon as you can get connected with us, come on and jump in. So in regards to teaching methods mismatch, we had in Uganda, there's a focus, or there has been a focus on exams and content memorization. I understand that that's changing, and Helen can talk more to that. Whereas in the US, we're focused, hopefully, in most cases, on participation and creativity and idea development. So having students be really creative and developing ideas and coming up with things on their own. Helen, I hear you're on. Would you like to chime in here?
Okay, I wanted to say something on teaching methods in Uganda. In most cases, like most schools, they concentrate in teaching, as you have said, that there is a lot of memorization of the content in order to pass the Sometimes, I'm sorry, I'm disturbed by network. Sometimes
Yeah.
come work just with that aim of passing exams. But since they introduced this competence-based learning, that learners have to come up with their projects and they have to write reports on how they came up with the projects. Now we have also tried to adapt your methods of teaching and the methods of learning by engaging learners to be active in learning, not memorizing the content. And I have some Ugandans who are here, I've seen them. If there is anybody, I'm seeing Francis, I'm seeing Brenda, I'm seeing Florence, you can also raise up your hand and bring the idea, because we are talking about Uganda and you are in Uganda, you know how teaching is done in our country. So that we relate with the other countries. So I was just requesting you to do that if you have a point. So when we go to rigid school structures in Uganda, limiting project-based learning activities, it is true, because in project-based learning, in most cases, it involves group work. The learners have to work in groups so that they consult themselves. Since we said what to learn, how to learn, and why they are learning that. So in most cases, in student-centered methods, we say a teacher is a leader, a teacher is a facilitator, a teacher is a leader, facilitator, a guide. Teacher guides these learners. So in most cases, they're in groups, they discuss their ideas until they come up with something. I was impressed when I visited one of the universities in Uganda, in Teso, that is Kumi University, and I got a dustbin which was made out of plastic bottles. I was impressed. I took a pic of that dustbin, but my phone had issues and all those pictures got deleted. The dustbin was nice. You see, all those ideas came from the learners. So that is what project-based learning is emphasizing in our children. But for us in Uganda, you'll find the whole school having only 5 structures, maybe 5 classes, 6 classes. Most especially when we go deep in the villages there, you can have like 7 classes. If it is a primary section, primary 1, primary 2, and the numbers are overwhelming. So you'll see that some of them go and study under trees. Imagine the situation whereby they have come up with their projects, and their projects are to be kept in a good environment where they can't be destroyed by rain or other factors. How can this teacher and the learners who are learning under the tree keep their materials? You see, so that is our big challenge in Uganda. Then in this one, technology and learning tools. We have some little bit of technology in town, like when you go to the cities, learners are learning using the computer. Now children even type, children play with the computers. But when we go down there in the villages, they even don't know how the computer looks like. You see that? So digitalized learning is not carried out in village settings or rural settings. That is also a challenge of implementing project-based learning. And yet sometimes these students may go to the computer lab if they had one, and they can research on their own. Maybe there are certain things, there is a certain content that they want to see. How is this one done in US? How is this one done in? So that they also bring the same and they get their knowledge. Because we said how, what, and why. Then online research for us in Uganda is limited in rural areas. That one is really limited in rural areas because we don't have computers. Most places are not connected to the power. We don't have electricity in a rural area. So those are the challenges that we have in Uganda. In consider, in far as this project-based learning is a concern. I have my friends a minute. If any of my friend is there has an idea to add, you can use my minute, please.
Yes, Brenda is mentioning, she says the practical aspect of learning is affected by scarcity. And I think that's a really good point, Brenda. She also mentioned that most of what is done is based on knowledge, not skills. And I think you've touched on both of those things, Helen, in your discussion of the Algerian context.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I want to also mention one of the challenges that American educators face when they go into environments such as these in Uganda is that we bring our online research, we bring our presentations, we bring all of these tools that we've used to teach classes in the US or in other countries that have easy access to internet and electricity. I mean, it seems like such a simple thing thinking about it here in the US where most everyone has electricity at the touch of a finger, but it's not available everywhere. And having that realization when you get to a country, you're going to have to change how you're instructing, how you're sharing, the approaches that you're making, or find a place that has the technology you need and then bring everyone there. Those are real challenges, true challenges to getting training across. And you can't expect your students to have access to everything. For example, many of my students had cell phones, but very few of them, in fact, I don't think any of them had a personal computer at the time. So let's move on. Helen, you touched on the fact that the class sizes are large, and I was told while I was there that classes could be 80 to 400 students. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I think maybe we're stuck. I may be stuck.
No, Erin, I can hear you.
Okay, so let me go ahead and continue, and Helen will come back as soon as her net allows it. In the US, as an American educator, we can do individualized differentiated instruction primarily because of our small class sizes. Most teachers who are teaching language will have 25 students on average. Some more, some less, but it's rare that you will find a class that's at least 50 students. One of the teachers that I worked with, because I was doing teacher training for reading at Chambogo University when I was there, one of the teachers informed me that when he had 100 students in his class, elementary school students, that he was not able to have them get up and do group work because they were sitting on benches elbow to elbow and there was no space to move in the classroom. So that is an incredible challenge for doing group work in the country, not having the space available, having very, very large sizes. And it's not impossible to overcome. We talked about using leaders in groups and breaking the students into groups and having leaders come and talk to the teacher to turn in updates and whatnot so that the teacher would have a good feeling of what was going on in the groups. But those numbers make it almost impossible for differentiated instruction. I see Helen's back. So Helen, let's talk a little bit about teacher-student dynamics. What is expected of students in the classroom?
Okay. In in a teacher center, I mean, teacher-student dynamics now. Is that the point that you have asked me to talk about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Here, in a teacher-student, yeah, the teacher, as I said earlier, I said earlier that the teacher is taken as a superior, is taken as the alpha and omega of knowledge. The teacher the teacher takes 80% of learning in that class. So in most cases, teachers go to dictate notes to the learners. Teacher just enters, then he says, open your books. Can we write? Begins after a teacher goes, read those notes. So this kind of teaching promotes what we call cram work, because learners have to go and cram so that when they meet exams, they are able to answer the questions. Then also in this class, I mean, in this type of a classroom, learners are not active. The learners don't participate actively. They are restricted. They are restricted from bringing out what they know, their knowledge, because they say the teacher enters and he begins teaching and does not give learners chance to participate in his or her lesson. Then this other one, because we are saying teacher center, then we have versing teachers as in facilitators. So now this one, when a teacher is a facilitator, a teacher is a consultant, a teacher is a leader, a teacher is a guide. This one now, the children, you give children work, the children see what they are going to learn, the children bring out what they want to learn, then the children bring out the ways, the strategies that they are going to use to bring out what they are going to learn. Then also the children know the reason why they are learning that. That one now, it promotes active participation in a class. That is number one. It promotes critical thinking from the learners. It promotes creativity from the learners. Compared to the other one of teacher-centered or teacher-student learning, which gives a teacher authority, full authority of the knowledge, does not give learners also chance to bring out what they know.
This is very true. Thank you, Helen. I remember being in classes in Uganda and I told everyone to call me Erin, and they added madam onto it. This also happened in Algeria. The same. Yeah. Helen, Brenda is saying, I think the emphasis of Helen is more on teacher-centeredness, to comprehend the dynamics, helping the learners become hard in terms of daily assessment and evaluation. So it's difficult partially because of the class sizes, but also because of the dynamic in what's expected of students. Is that correct?
Or what?
Yeah,
Francis?
I see. Yeah, Francis, go ahead. Speak. You unmute yourself, please.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be part of this uh, learning. Well, I wanted to also say something about the teaching dynamics. The way I understand is maybe compared to other countries, for example, USA. I see, like in Uganda, when we look at how the teaching and learning is organized, you realize that teaching dynamics in Uganda are influenced by several factors. They may be including government policies, maybe the curriculum changes, the teacher training, and maybe the socio-economic conditions. That is how I understand. And when you look at the education system or the structure in Uganda, you realize that uh, it follows a certain arrangement or order. Like in primary, maybe learners go through the 7 years cycle before they actually get to the secondary level, and then secondary takes maybe 6 years. Tertiary takes 3 to 5 years, depending on the course. Uh, Also, there are government policies that influence or affect education in Uganda. Like we have the universal primary education that was started in the 1997. Then maybe the universal secondary education also that got started in 2007. So anyway, they were introduced in an attempt to improve education, but also it has come up with these have come with some challenges. They are numerous. Maybe I may not be able to list all of them, but one of them can be it has attracted a high number of learners where we can't actually, as teachers, attend to uh, each and every learner as expected. So that one affects the learning, the teaching and learning. And also it has there's what we call the technology integration. Helen talked about it. You realize that in some schools, especially in urban places, ICT is to some extent utilized compared to the rural areas. So you find that the rural areas may be missing this opportunity of integrating technology in education. Then when we look at also privatization, where we have private schools and then public schools, you realize that private schools often have better resources and maybe good pay compared to public schools. That is like teacher remuneration. And then also there is maybe you may realize that structures like the classrooms and other facilities may be better in private schools compared to government schools. So, and other things, I think for now, I beg to submit.
Thank you, Francis. Excellent points. Really appreciate it. It's great to have the insight of more Ugandan teachers here. Helen, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Well, let me give first a quick overview of the PBLF in Uganda, because this was the framework. This was the initial training that we did. I developed in collaboration with UNELTA, which is the Ugandan National English Language Teachers Association, a program to train teachers. It was intended to train project-based learning. So PBLF is project-based learning framework. But having learned what I just shared with all of you and what Helen has shared with us, they didn't have the way to understand project-based learning because, as Helen had mentioned before, it is primarily based on group work. And without the ability to do group work or an understanding of group work or even collaborative education, these teachers would not have been able to grasp what we were talking about with project-based learning. So we started out with student-centered learning and collaborative education. So this program trained 15 facilitators in the initial steps of how to set up a project in the classroom, how to choose one, how to help students, how to guide students to setting up their own projects. And we certified these teachers and sent them out into the world. And since then, while I was there, we trained about 100 teachers in Pakwach and at Nalinya Lwantale. And then after I left the middle of 2023, they continued these programs to other regions. And I'm going to turn this over to Helen to talk just a little bit about what she's done and what the group has done with UNELTA in expanding the PBLF practice across the country. Go ahead, Helen.
Okay. When you left in, I think in July of 2023, we trained more than 45 teachers from Soroti. And then we added again, I and Olupot and I were in Bududa. We trained more teachers from Fort Portal. And then also more teachers were trained from Barara. So the number has increased. I had some pics that I wanted to share, but as I said earlier on that my phone had issues with the pics got deleted. That when Professor Bismarck joined us, we introduced what we call project-based learning classroom model class. Model. It is PBL model class, and there we train more teachers from Luero. We train some teachers from Kampala, whereby they were able to show us the pictures, the videos of their children's or their students' work. So PBL, like one day we're having a Zoom meeting with the two schools, one from Luero and one from Kampala here. They told us we were interacting with the students themselves, not only the teachers, but we're together with the students. They told us that PBL has done a lot to them, and they were giving us the benefits that they have got from PBL. As I said, one, they are now creative, they're able to solve some of the problems that they face. Like if someone does not have what to read, someone can sit and make a project or write a book. Then they exchange and they read. They were giving us a lot of benefits that they have got from PBL. Then also, like the other day, I was making a phone call to find out the performance of students in our schools that we have trained. In Soroti Teso College, Aloyat, the head teacher told me that the students performed well. Then there is also a school in Bududa. That school is called the school has gone because, you know, for us in Uganda, for me to pronounce another region's name becomes a challenge. I talked to one of the madams that we trained from Bududa, and they said, yeah, their students performed well in making projects and writing even reports. Because after training them, they kept on calling, how can I come up with the project? We joined together and we helped those people on how to guide the learners to come up with their projects together with the Professor Bismarck. So PBL has done a lot to the teachers who have got knowledge from the trainers. So we need, how I wish we could get more, how I wish we could get more funding that we reach other teachers also to train them. Now, interacting with them, apart from giving us the positive part of PBL, they also gave us some negative part of it, or the challenges that they are facing while implementing PBL. Number one, these teachers say they still have challenges in assessing. We all know that PBL, when you're assessing, it is an ongoing formative assessment. So in most cases, they find challenges in assessing the learners' work or the learners' projects. Then number two, we have said so many of them. We talked of infrastructure, we talked of finances, we talked of, those are the challenges that they brought out. But I know since it's a new program, as we go on, we shall get there where we want to reach. That's what I can say, but my friends can also take 1 minute to explain what they have seen and what they have got when interacting with the teachers. Brenda, you are supervisor in Kampala. Tell us if you're online. Tell us something that you have got from your teacher that you are supervising.
Brenda, you may need to unmute yourself.
Brenda. I know Brenda is also, we are under rural areas, network disturbs. So I beg, maybe Francis, do you have anything to add there? Okay.
I think
So-
Francis dropped off the connection. Yeah, the connectivity there, we're getting a true example.
So I beg to submit.
I'm going to move us over to the questions, the Q&A, to let folks see some of the questions that we have here that you're going to work with. I hear that the challenges that you're facing, you're overcoming them to a certain degree. You said there's changes happening in the government to help support teachers. What other things need to happen that will really support teachers?
I think this one is an open discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, I'm just struck by the complexity of the landscape for teaching. Like in terms of a matrix, it sounds like there's a high level of different disabilities in the classroom in one direction, and then in another direction, you know, if you were to lay it out in a chart, that the linguistic diversity of the students in the classroom. Now, are all the classrooms linguistically diverse, or do they just tend to, you know, are there multiple languages in one classroom across the country, or is it just that there's different languages in different classrooms? I think that's one piece there that I'm trying to understand.
Did you understand the question, Helen?
Hello, I had, but I did not get it well.
Okay, so Jen's asking if there's multiple mother languages, so home languages in one classroom, or if it's just the same language in the classroom and then the teachers are speaking English and the students aren't understanding. I think that's the question. Is that correct, Jen?
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that question. In Uganda, we have so many languages that children come, that they learn, most especially in rural areas. They learn their mother tongue, then they come to school. When they come to school, we have when they begin primary. I don't know whether you also call primary or elementary schools. So these children are introduced to English as our second language in the schools. We use English as the medium of instructions in Uganda. But when these children are in primary 1, primary 2, and primary 3, they are taught using the mother tongue or using the language of the area, the language that people use in that area. That's why you find, like when you go to cities, they use English because English is the unifying, it's the language that is spoken, that can be understood by all the learners in that class. So P1, P2, P3, they in the urban setting, they use English. In a rural setting, they use the language of the area. If it is Ateso, they use Ateso. If the language is spoken by people in that area is Kumam, they use Kumam. That's how it is. Then when they go to P4, that one is a transition from lower primary to upper primary. So first term, you can teach these children mixing the language of the area and English as the medium of instructions for those other subjects apart from English. Then when they go to P5, P1, they use English. So even in P1, P2, P3, they use, when you are teaching English, you have to use English as the medium of instruction. Apart from those other subjects like SST, science, maths that you use the area, the language of the area. So we have so many languages, but we don't bring all of them to the class. If the community is constituted of many languages, in most cases they use English as the medium of instructions straight away from primary one. Have I answered you, John?
That was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Fantastic. So are there other questions? Would anyone like to add a question? Or we do have folks here who are in Uganda who could share their own insights. Leila, I know that you're not in Uganda, but you've been commenting that there are some similarities between the Algerian educational environment and what you're hearing about Uganda. Would you like to comment?
Thank you, Erin. Well, absolutely. The context is quite similar. We are having the same challenges. So we are within the same continent. So most of the challenges that have been mentioned in this presentation, we do know them and we are trying to overcome them. I mentioned in the comments sometimes earlier that the best methodology ever is the one that emerges from a thorough analysis of the context. We cannot pretend to use project-based learning unless we make sure that the conditions are in favor of that. But this doesn't mean that we do not try. And Erin, you witnessed some of our trials in Algeria and how they were successful, but we cannot lead them any further. I mean, they just remain isolated attempts that cannot be generalized because the contexts, even in Algeria, are different from one place to another. Algeria is almost a continent, and there are differences within the country, let alone outside the country. So the digital divide is a very serious constraint, and I don't know what to do, but all I hope is that we identify the challenges first and then work on trying to overcome them one by one to reach the target.
Thank you, Leila. Very important points there in regards to cultural context. And I'm so glad that you brought those up and are mentioning those. I think in Uganda, they also are experiencing a similar issue where education and what's available across the country, even though Uganda is quite small when compared with Algeria, they're experiencing similar issues with having differences in what's available for instruction, mindsets from region to region, and so forth. And I hope that this type of conversation opens up connections between both Ugandan and Algerian educators, where perhaps you each can share what's been working well for you and maybe get some ideas, maybe not necessarily taking on exactly what's been done, but making a change to how you're promoting or working towards making changes in your own country. Yes, Leila.
Just wanted to say that would be great, and we are open to any exchange.
Fantastic. All right, we are actually past the hour. Usually our talks go for an hour, but we're going to go ahead and keep going with questions as long as folks are wanting to listen. Hellen, what advice would you give to educators that are new to cross-cultural collaboration? Do you have any advice?
Okay, I may be having an advice to give them. One, as you said, that we shouldn't be having fixed mindset. Let the teachers change from being fixed to open. Let them have that open mindset to accept change. Like when the program has been brought, let us embrace it and we do it. Don't say, that one is difficult, I cannot make it. You will make it if others have been making it. Why is it that you cannot make it? Then number two, we as teachers, we need to be creative. Sometimes, like we can begin crying, there's no fun, we don't have fun, they are not funding this and what. But if we can be creative to improvise, using the local environment, we can overcome some of the challenges which are bringing the fears to us in implementing programs like project-based learning. Then also this one goes to you, our professors. You see, we are talking about US versus Uganda, Uganda versus US, but you'll find that some of us, the only country that we know in the world is Uganda. So now when we are to learn about US, about Nigeria, about Algeria, it may be researching, maybe reading from the books, but if some of us are also given a chance to go and see what is happening in the other country, maybe to take the knowledge that we have got from Uganda to Nigeria, maybe to take to that one will give us also enough content when we're explaining it to our friends. Then the next point that I'll tell my friends that we need to engage ourselves in research, so that we shall be able to research and find our own ideas that can help us to improve on our education standards in our countries. The other one, I can ask my brother Francis. Francis is from Teso. He can also add. Francis.
Thank you so much, Helen. You almost mentioned everything. I just want to add a voice that, in an attempt to improve or make everyone feel comfortable with maybe project-based learning and new developments, we need to unlock ourselves and put research as a number one thing. Two is becoming somebody who is dynamic, flexible, and use creativity as one of the things that will actually propel you to achieve certain goals. Maybe the other thing is looking at project-based learning as something new to some teachers, we need to build what we call, can I say, uh, collaborating with other teachers, collaborating with others, consulting and sharing knowledge. And I think that will help you in what you're missing. Somebody else will be able to give you something, and you will be good to go. And maybe the other thing is, yeah, we can try lobbying also, just to add on to what is available. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Francis, for that good addition. Yeah, I went off, my laptop went off, and I'm far from where I can charge it. So I've now changed it to a phone now.
Well, thank you for sticking with us, Helen. I know that you are overcoming challenges as we speak every day. Good job.
God is in control.
Absolutely. So, are there any other questions from our audience? So, I'd like to kind of wrap us up, knowing that Helen has a limited time available with us still with her phone. But I want to give you these takeaways that we hope that you will have gathered from our conversation today, and will take back with you into your practice, whether it be in Uganda or elsewhere. And for anyone who is watching this video, if you are an American educator, I hope this has created more awareness for you in how you are approaching your teachers in different cultures and in different countries. So our takeaways are: culture plays a crucial role in shaping education. I think that's undeniable. And if we don't know that culture, we are going to struggle to be effective. And that's our second point. So understanding cultural backgrounds enhances our teaching effectiveness. Global knowledge of practices and standards is ineffective without local insight. If you don't have your foot in the actual zone you're working in, you might be able to provide some support, but you won't be as effective as if you actually had local knowledge and culture included. And collaborating with colleagues from other cultures can create something more than just two individual parts. It becomes a synthesis of ideas and understanding. We have to put together as partners, as colleagues. We develop and we move forward and we grow. And building those intercultural, cross-cultural relationships is that way forward. So I want to leave you with that. And Layla, I did read your note that you expect us to coordinate research possibilities. This is something Plumeria is definitely wanting to do. We will move forward with that for sure. I'm going to turn it over to Helen for her final thoughts.
Okay, thanks so much for this time. Thanks for giving me this time to at least say something as we conclude this. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. I want to appreciate you, our professors, for organizing these webinars that bring together the teachers from different countries. I have really enjoyed the points that I've got from other teachers like Lila from Algeria, Nigeria. I've really enjoyed her. So if we continue in this same way, this one is one weapon that we can use to fight our fears. So it is also one way that we can come together And I want to thank my friends who have joined us. I think many wanted, but due to some other factors, I had invited even the inspector from this Directorate of Education Standards to tell us, because for them they do monitoring of education, but I think maybe he forgot. I tried to remind him, maybe he was busy, but he was willing to be with us. He would be again another instrumental person to tell us about the progress of competence-based curriculum in Uganda. So Professor Erin, Professor Windy, and Professor, uh, thank you so much for the heart and the vision that you have for teachers. We are happy, and I'm happy. I'm sure even my friends who are there are very happy. We enjoy whenever you organize, just invite us. We are ready to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. Helen, we're not just going to organize. We want you guys to come and share more with us for sure. We'll be the platform. Francis.
Yes, Erin, I'm really excited. I'm very happy to hear from you after a very long
It looks like we've lost the connection.
I hope you're doing well. I'm really very happy for this, and I want to urge and advise actually keep one and
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Unfortunately, the network's causing a little trouble hearing you. So I wish we got all of that, but I don't think we got everything that you said. If you want to put it in the chat, we can share it with everyone as well. But thank you for your final words, and we really appreciate you coming. It is so nice to hear your voice again, Francis, and to have you here. And for Brenda, I know you weren't able to talk. Appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today. You always have great insights. To Layla, thank you so much for your attention and for participating today and joining us. We definitely are going to plan something again to bring both of your countries together with us and try to get something going. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for this very, very enlightening moment. I really enjoyed listening to our colleagues from Uganda and knowing that despite the distances, we do share a lot. And I am here again to just express the readiness to work with colleagues from Uganda on comparative studies or on further research on the topic and even other topics regarding teaching and teacher education. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you. Does anyone else would like to say anything before we close out?
I'd just like to say thank you, Helen and Erin. This has been really, really good to hear. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Rosa, did you have yourself unmuted?
Sorry, I really wanted to join, but my Wi-Fi wasn't working. I'm so sorry. I'm sure you all had a great time, and I'm happy to join the next one.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad
Hi,
that you're able to
Rosa.
make it.
Hello, Layla. How are you doing?
Nice. Thank you. How are you doing?
All right.
I'm good. I'm
If
good.
this is an Algerian welcome, we're going to be here all day, everybody.
So true.
All right.
That's
Well,
cultural.
we'll get you in our next one, and we'll make sure we set aside 15 or 20 minutes for greetings. We'll work on that. Awesome. It's been great having you all here. I want to pass this back to Wendy in case she has something that she would like to present to us at the end. Layla has put us into the chat so that anyone here who is interested in connecting with her can get connected, or if you don't have it, you can contact me and I will get that for you.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Helen. This has been amazing and very informative. I personally have been very curious about the work Erin did in Uganda. I've heard a little in the past, so this was really helpful. If you enjoyed this, first off, and you have something that you think that you would like to contribute, we are accepting proposals for webinar presentations in the future. If you feel that you have something you would like to discuss and present, we can facilitate that for you. And we have an email address on the screen, info@plumeriaeducationgroup.org. We also have a link on the website, which is plumeriaglobal.org, and you can go and submit the proposal, and we'll get back to you on how that'll work. But please focus on cross-cultural community building and education. That's a very broad spectrum of things. Could be technology, it could be how you're interacting in the classroom like this one. So brainstorm and feel free to send us an email and if you want more details on that. We also are accepting donations within the United States. Plumeria Global Education Group is a 501c3, so if you're within the United States, that is a tax deductible donation. And lastly, this is important for Rosa as well, because you weren't able to make it in because of your Wi-Fi. At the bottom there, we do have a YouTube channel. We're posting all of the recordings from our previous webinars, so you will have an opportunity to watch it. So keep an eye on that for that in the next week. And as soon as I get all that worked out, we will get it uploaded and you will be able to watch the whole thing. But I really appreciate everybody coming today and participating, and I'm really excited that we have another one. If folks are interested in presenting more, please let us know. Thank you so much.